Hey, how are you doing? So I'm gonna do a natal chart reading here, and I guess in a way it's like my first official natal chart reading, and I decided to upload it here because if people want a reading from me, I am open to that, so they can get a better idea maybe of what to expect from me. So this person was born on the 7th of September 1993. In Anchorage, I guess, if that's the right way of pronouncing it, Alaska, United States. So a few things really kind of jump out at me first, and I did take some notes as well, so I will be looking at those sometimes. So I suppose it is a very mercurial Mercurian chart. So ascendant is in Gemini. So I guess one of the filters that you view the world through is Gemini in nature. So very interested in sort of seeing the data and understanding the data of life. Kind of trying to understand, when you look at the world, you're trying to essentially understand it. You're trying to gather information, gather knowledge. So it's a very intellectual placement. And Moon is also in Gemini. And I find it so interesting that, the chart ruler is Mercury because, ascendant is in Gemini and Mercury happens to be in Virgo in the 6th house. I'm using the Placidus system here. So as you can see, the 6th house is very large in this chart. So there's a lot of planets, a lot of placements in the 6th house. I find it so interesting that, there is such a Mercurian tone to this chart because Ascendant is in Gemini, Moon is in Gemini, and then, the Sun and Mercury and Chiron are in Gemini, and there's a lot of planets in the 6th house. So the chart ruler Mercury is in Gemini, which Mercury rules Gemini the chart ruler is in Virgo and Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo, and so that's very interesting to me. So there is a focus on knowledge and data and kind of information. So Gemini is the part of the chart, I guess, that deals with kind of the gathering of the data, kind of collecting data, wanting to share data. And Virgo is the part of the chart that also deals with data, but it's more analytical. So it actually wants to kind of sort through the data and trying to analyze it and trying to maybe understand it in a more detailed, complex way. So the Gemini side of you kind of takes in the information, and then the Virgo side of you is actually interested in, okay, but what can I get from this information if I get rid of what is not necessary? So and kind of try to analyze it and piece it together. So I find that interesting. And so there is a very strong 6th house influence here. The Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, Mars, Pluto, and North Node are in the 6th house. So there's a focus on not just analyzing information, but also kind of being of service and kind of using that information in your day-to-day life and trying to kind of help people, or trying to in your day-to-day life you're using that because Mercury is in the 6th house and you've got a lot of planets in the 6th house, so you're very I suppose focused on the day-to-day living and maybe health and work and service of practical nature. And so all those planets that are in the 6th house are kind of tapping into that that part of your life. So I think this is kind of an intellectual chart, kind of a teacher. There's a teacher element here, interested in information. Now, I was talking about Mercury a lot, and I do want to talk about some of the aspects of Mercury, because I find that Mercury is generally pretty well aspected. I mean, it is, for example, trine both Uranus and Neptune. So I find that interesting because Mercury-Uranus aspects allow for a lot of insight to come through you, so, or to kind of you gather a lot of insight. And Uranus is very quick. It's very quick-minded. So, and it's like Uranus is also the higher octave of Mercury in a way. So it's kind of like you're a very insightful thinker, and you can really use that for like a service to help people. I find that, you know, the trine between Mercury and Uranus is particularly interesting because it's like you are able to gather information and insight in very quick ways, in a way that is very harmonious and flowing. So you're probably a very original thinker. You maybe come up with interesting solutions to things, especially because Mercury is in the sixth house. So the sixth house can have to do with like practical solutions to kind of everyday matters, everyday problems. So that is super interesting. And Mercury trine Neptune as well is also interesting, because I think that also gathers a lot of data, but it's more the kind of unconscious data that you're gathering with that aspect. So you're probably very intuitive, and again, it's harmonious because it's a trine. So you have, it's like in this lifetime you have found a way to kind of utilize your intuitive mind in a harmonious way. So you can really gather a lot of insight from Mercury just trining Uranus and Neptune. And they're also in a very tight conjunction. So it's like your mind is very open to like receiving this information. So with Uranus, it's like intuitive information, or information that can change things or start new things, because that's what Uranus is about. And Neptune in this trine is a lot to do with like you're receiving information that's more spiritual, or maybe mystical, if you want to say it that way, like information that not everybody's going to understand, and you have like the ability to kind of get this information because of, you know, you have this aspect Mercury trine Neptune. So it's like you're getting all this like spiritual, I guess, information, or information from kind of like from another dimension almost. Things that are more unseen, things that are more fluid, you know, that's kind of Neptune's realm. So because, you know, it is a trine, it's a harmonious thing that is kind of, you have gathered positive karma, so to speak, about this thing. So in this lifetime, you're able to now, it's like you've earned this, you're able to gather all this like almost like unconscious data or intuitive data from Neptune, and you're able to kind of use it in your day-to-day life because Mercury is in the sixth house. And it's like you have the ability to use that in a service, because the sixth house is so prominent here, and Mercury is also in the sixth house. So I hope that made sense. I just found that super interesting, and I do hope that makes sense to you. And I just do want to notice, I do notice here as well, I want to mention a Mercury sextile Pluto, because that's another aspect that is very attuned to information that is, well, in this case, it's like deeper information. And the sextile is giving you a lot of, it's a very kind of stimulated, I guess, aspect. So you're able to actively, if you work on this, you know, you're really able to actively tap into those deeper areas of life. And it's like you're able to penetrate into situations and gather deep insight. Pluto is kind of has to do with the transformative side of life, and kind of personal transformation, and just deeper information that can be used to kind of get rid of the baggage, get rid of what is not necessary. And your mind is kind of attuned to that. So Mercury is in a sextile, which is a very harmonious, positive, active kind of stimulating and stimulated kind of aspect. So you're able to kind of tap into that like deep insight, and able to penetrate into situations, and Again, I think this chart shows a lot of ability for sort of teaching or just being of service when it comes to the mind. I think that makes sense. So you can really use your ability to penetrate into situations, to kind of help people or to be of service in some way, kind of in day-to-day practical ways. So I hope that all makes sense so far. So I hope also that my setup here isn't too quiet or anything, because I've had issues with that before, where if I make audio recordings like this, that it can be a bit quiet, but I hope it's easy enough to understand and to hear. I did actually also want to mention that, there is so much Mercurian energy into this chart. And I find it interesting as well that like the North Node is in Sagittarius in the 6th house, and it's actually opposing Moon in Gemini, and it's also opposing it's at 6 degrees of Sagittarius. Ascendant, it's kind of like loosely opposing the ascendant, maybe. It doesn't come up here in the aspect table, but it's opposite the Gemini side of you. So because obviously the South Node obviously is in Gemini. So I think that's interesting, because it's like you have so much Gemini and Virgo and kind of Mercury like energy. And this North Node in Sagittarius is actually showing you that, like, in order for that to help your soul growth, you need to actually kind of tap into a little bit more. Also, because the descendant is in Sagittarius, so that's like the part of you that you kind of try to find through relationships, for example. And North Node is in Sagittarius, so I just find it interesting that like you have so much Gemini energy and like Mercury energy, Virgo energy, that this North Node in Sagittarius is actually showing you that, for your soul growth, it is important for you to actually strive towards a little bit more of that Sagittarius, like themes of life. So, if the Gemini South Node is really used to, like, just gathering information and being an information junkie, which I can totally relate to, like gathering information and just knowledge, information. But the Sagittarius North Node is almost telling you that, like, for your soul growth, you need to learn the lessons of Sagittarius, which is kind of like you need to learn to actually use this information and actually use it to form an opinion or form a philosophy or some kind of belief system. So it's all well and good to kind of like see different sides to things and just gather information and knowledge about an insight about like the world around you. But this Sagittarius North Node is, and the descendant, Sagittarius descendant, they're kind of like showing you that like there's a part of you that is almost, it's not that it's missing, but it's like it's there for you to strive towards. So the descendant can show you, like I said, like what is like the shadow part of you, or that you want to see mirrored, or that you want to, when you get into a relationship, for example, that you can see this part of yourself through this other person. And the North Node in Sagittarius is showing you that like it's something that you also need to strive towards. It's the Sagittarius themes. So I don't know if you can relate to that, but I just find it interesting that, there is so much Mercury stuff going on in Gemini and Virgo, and then this North Node in Sagittarius and the South Node in Gemini. So it's like the South Node in Gemini is so used to being the sort of person you've gathered a lot of karma when it comes to being the sort of person who just wants to gather all this information and data. But the North Node is like what it's hard to get to. It's hard to get to it, but we have to kind of, in order for our soul to grow, we kind of have to strive a little bit towards that. So Sagittarius is very opinionated. It's very, it's also like intellectual, but it's the bigger picture. It's the higher mind. So for example, if Gemini is interested in my immediate environment, then Sagittarius is interested in what's going on outside of my immediate environment, what's going on in other countries, what's going on in like other schools of thought that I'm not used to, or other belief systems that maybe I don't know as much about. So the Sagittarius North Node is almost showing you maybe that, that for your soul growth, you could try to be a little bit more interested in like what's going on in other countries, or what's going on in other schools of thought, if that makes sense. So Sagittarius is all about kind of belief systems and philosophies, and sometimes religion and things like that. So it's like that area of life is maybe not something that you're as attuned to, or I don't know if you can relate to that, but it's like your natural state, what you're used to, is kind of gathering information like a Gemini. And so the Sagittarius North Node is showing you that like, you can actually use that information to like form some kind of deeply held, strongly held like philosophy, or a belief system, or like a specific opinion that you're gonna hold on to tightly. And almost like the Sagittarius is also like the debater. So but it's kind of like, or it's someone that Sagittarius can sometimes try to convince others of their opinion, and it's like you need to maybe get a little bit of that in you. So it's like you don't need to try to convince others, but it's like if you have an opinion, if you use all this Mercury energy to gather all this information, and then you try and go and actually have such strong opinions about things that you would be able to convince others and teach others, because Sagittarius is also the teacher. So if you kind of work on that side of yourself, then you could be a great a teacher who actually teaches not just information, but teaches like values and beliefs, or how you see things, and how that can inspire somebody else to kind of see things a certain way. I hope that made sense, but I just found that interesting element of your chart. Now, as well as Mercury being trine Mercury is trine Uranus and Neptune. The Sun is also trine Uranus and Neptune, and I find that interesting as well, because it makes for like an original, sensitive kind of personality. So like I have the Sun square Uranus, for example. So like my Sun and Uranus are maybe not as harmonious. It's more of slightly chaotic energy when it comes to those two parts of my chart. But you have the trine, so I find that interesting that like it makes for like a highly original personality, but it's not in a way that like you're going like it's not very frictional. It's more you're just a highly interesting intuitive person that people can be really inspired by, and it's like electrifying for them. Uranus is very electric, and so you have like this maybe slightly offbeat way of looking at things or doing things that it's like harmonious. It's exciting for people. It's intriguing for people, and the square can be like that as well. But with the square, there's also more difficulty in that the person might be a little bit more rebellious, or just a little bit more hard to figure out, or kind of acting unexpectedly, or acting out of place, or acting awkwardly. And with the trine between the Sun and Uranus, it's like that is not present as much. It's more like a harmonious state of things when it comes to those two parts of your chart. And Sun trine Neptune as well is quite beautiful, because it's like it's like you're getting information almost from another realm, and then it's making you act. The Sun is like how you act. It's making you act in ways that are very compassionate. And I do find it Sun trine Neptune as a very compassionate aspect, kind of, because you can see like different. You can kind of gather all this information about different things, and so that makes you compassionate about like different points of view. And I think people might find you quite gentle, and kind of you'll have like a calming presence. So it's like where that comes from is this Neptunian energy of just like I look at Neptune as like the ocean in a way. Like it's, of course it can be messy, but like it's there's a presence to it. It's like there's like a calm presence to it. It's almost like there can be storms, but it's like it's flowing. It's kind of it's like there for you to the ocean is for me, like it represents like this uniting the continents almost, and it's like there's like a calming presence when I think about, there's a calming feeling when I think about like the ocean, even though there's so much going on in it as well, but it's you probably know what I mean. So it's like you have that slightly Neptunian element to your character in the way that you act, so you can come across very compassionate and just like have this kind of calming presence. Now I do want to talk about the moon a little bit as well. So the moon is in Gemini, so I would find that you probably have a more intellectual approach to your feelings, but it's interesting that like moon is in the 12th house. So moon in the 12th house is very at least with Placidus is in the 12th house, so moon in the 12th house can be very almost like spiritually connected to your own like inner world. It's like you spend a lot of time in that emotional stuff that you're going through, because it's like it's a secluded house. 12th house is a secluded house, so maybe people don't know that much about your emotions or your feelings, or kind of like what you're going through in your like inner world. But because it's in Gemini, I think you do kind of intellectualize the emotions, and your emotions are connected to needing to do things, having a variety, very Gemini things, kind of interested in information, and then that kind of satisfies the moon. If you get enough of that stimulation, that intellectual stimulation, you will feel secure in yourself, because the moon has also to do with our emotional security. So, but I do want to talk about a couple of aspects that you have with the moon. So moon square Saturn is kind of a weaker one for you, but it's still there. It's just that, moon is in Gemini and Saturn is in Aquarius. So they're actually in signs that are trining each other. But in terms of the angle, they're square. So this might be a little bit weaker for you. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But like I have moon square Saturn as well. And, moon square Saturn can have a lot of emotional sort of hardships, or there's a need to kind of it's like the emotional safety and the emotional security and the emotional well-being doesn't come without work. It doesn't come without like karma being attached to it, which is Saturn. So it's not I think moon Saturn people can be prone to being kind of moody, or needing to kind of master their own emotional states. So that's something that I very much relate to. I have this aspect. So just Saturn is bringing that karma to your emotions, which is moon, and your inner world. So it's like it's not so easy with you, I think, when it comes to just feeling good all the time, or feeling positive, or feeling like safe. It comes with something. There's always something that's attached to it karmically. So maybe you need to just master your own moods, your own emotions. But I won't spend more time on that, because I think that is a little bit weaker for you, just because of the signs that are involved. They're actually trining each other by sign, but with the angle, it's actually a square. And moon is also square Chiron. Now Chiron is in Virgo as well. I do find moon square Chiron particularly interesting as well, because I find it actually a little bit similar to moon square Saturn, in that there is like an emotional wound, or like I don't know if this is correct for you, but like you may have times in your life where you're like a little bit more touchy or a little bit more sensitive. maybe easily kind of offended, or maybe not offended, but easily, there's a sensitivity definitely with Moon Chiron. I notice it when it comes to transits with Moon and Chiron, even like when Moon is transiting my Chiron or something like that, I feel that I get more touchy. And so there's an element of your personality that has that kind of built in, this kind of more touchy energy, sensitivity for sure. I do find it interesting that Mars and Jupiter are conjunctly in Libra in the 6th house. So Mars conjunct Jupiter is quite active and quite action oriented. It's this kind of a go-getter. I look at it as like a go-getter type of energy. So Mars is action, let's go. And Jupiter kind of brings some kind of optimism to Mars when it's conjuncted. So you may have a lot of optimism kind of about Libra themes. So you may be quite attuned in like a higher way to relationships. You may kind of understand relationships in like how to navigate relationships, or how to, I don't know if that's true for you, but like you may have a go-getter nature when it comes to just relationships and finding like fairness and balance and kind of harmonizing things, like all those Libra themes. So you may be like a go-getter about those things, or have good luck in those areas. Mars and Jupiter is also, I think when they're aspecting, kind of have to do with good luck. So I don't know how that is for you, but I think just from what I see, it seems that like you may be just actively oriented towards relationships. Also, Mars in Libra, just on its own, it does have this element of being slightly passive aggressive, or just because see, they're not Mars. When Mars is in Libra, it's not in a compatible sign, particularly, right? So because Mars rules Aries, so it's like there's an element of you that needs to learn like how to put your own needs first when that matters, but also not forget about others. So there's this kind of interesting dynamic going on. So I think Mars in Aries, for example, is very attuned to that needing, this thing of like, I'm going to put myself first and then I'll help you, that kind of thing. But Mars in Libra, it's like it's like your energy is being put to wanting to do things for others first. So it's like Mars in Libra, it doesn't get to express all of its Aries qualities. So it can't express all its Aries nature in Libra. It becomes more about the other, putting a lot of energy on the other, putting a lot of energy on, like, especially, it's in the 6th house for you. So it's like you're putting energy into kind of like being of service to other people. And it's also, amplified because this Jupiter in Libra is also conjuncted. So Jupiter kind of amplifies things, wants to expand things and kind of bring about a lot of gregarious kind of energy to whatever it's touching. So I think that's interesting. So Mars conjunct Jupiter in Libra in the 6th house. So just, putting a lot of expansive energy into relating to others and kind of being of service to others. And like you don't have any planets in Aries, so I think with you kind of need to focus a little bit on like, what do I need first, and then kind of like you might have certain situations where you just need to focus on yourself first, and then kind of be of service to others. I want to see if there's anything else in my notes here that I haven't said yet. I hope that made sense so far. Now, okay, so Uranus and Neptune are both conjunct the midheaven. So that's interesting because like the midheaven is almost like your vocation, or like how you're seen in the public eye. So Uranus, Neptune, and midheaven are all in Capricorn. So it's like, definitely an original personality and intuitive. Uranus and Neptune are both really intuitive, in different ways, but that's kind of what they are. So people see that in you, people see that. So I find it also interesting that, Uranus and Neptune with Placidus are in the 9th house, and they're conjunct the MC. So it's like part of your public image is having these unique intuitive worldviews, because they're in the 9th house, which has a lot to do with worldviews and philosophy and like beliefs and belief systems. So Uranus in the Uranus and Neptune in the 9th house, you have a lot of intuitive insights when it comes to those things, and people see that in the public eye, so the midheaven. So it's like Uranus gets the insights, and it just revolutionizes things, and it's this energy that like is very electrifying. It's like bringing about new consciousness, and Neptune is also bringing like a spiritual awareness. And so you have that when it comes to comes to your worldviews and philosophy. So you may be a very philosophical person who gets all these insights, and I think that's what people see in you, partly because they're conjunct the midheaven. And Capricorn is also a sign that's kind of a like it can be like the boss, it can be like a leader in that way. So I think you have the potential, the capacity to kind of use your intuitive, psychic, sensitive sort of insights, because you're sensitive to you're sensitive to that information. I see that here, like you're sensitive to that information, and so to all the psychic, intuitive information, and so you can inspire people and kind of lead others with that, and people can kind of see like your worldviews, your intuitive insights, and your unique worldviews. Uranus in the 9th house, Neptune in the 9th house, and they can kind of see that. That's partly like what you represent in like the public eye, if that makes sense. And I do have also a note on Venus square Pluto. So Venus is in Leo, so definitely quite passionate when it comes to like relationships, and kind of like I think your own self-worth. Leo is a sign that kind of is proud of, can be proud of themselves, and like Venus in Leo is very like, I think, quite high energy when it comes to like relationships, or just high in terms of like I know what I want and I'm gonna go get it, or something like that, and I'm not gonna let people like push me around in relationships and things like that. So but it's square Pluto, so that's super interesting, because it's actually quite a loose square, because Venus is at 13 degrees and Pluto is at 23 degrees of Scorpio. So I mean, it's a very loose square, but I would say that there's an element in your life probably where, because of this Venus square Pluto, where like relationships are tied to karma. There's the karmic relationships going on, and it's something that like may happen like in terms of like a pattern. So there may be a pattern in your life where you're presented with, or you get involved in these relationships that are karmic and maybe difficult. And so, but I think part of it for you is to find your own self-worth through those relationships, because Venus is in Leo and it wants to be like the proud lion, and like I know what I'm worth, and you should see that, like you should see what I'm worth. And so maybe your relationships are kind of related to that in a way. So maybe they're teaching you how to get back in touch with like your own self-worth and to kind of display that. I don't know if that's true for you, but that's kind of what I see here. And also Venus is in the 5th house, so the 5th house can have to do with kind of especially like short-term relationships, kind of like flings and kind of things like that. So it can have to do with that. So there's like a karmic element attached to your fifth house themes. Also, Chiron is in the fifth house. Chiron in the fifth house can mean that, there can be kind of a karmic difficult element when it comes to short-term relationships and flings and like the things you do for fun as well. But when it comes to like relationships, like short-term relationships, I think Chiron in the fifth can shine a light on like a wound that is present. And, it's like, it's teaching you to like work on something when it comes to yourself. So it's like through these relationships, through these like what seemed like fun, interactions with people, but it's actually teaching you something deeper about yourself. Pluto, it's square Pluto, so sorry, yes, Venus, yes, actually, Venus is square Pluto and Chiron is square Pluto. Yes, that's what I was talking about. Yes, so Venus and Chiron are both square. I'm gonna have to stop soon because my words are getting tangled now. But Venus and Chiron are both square Pluto, and they're both in the fifth house, and Pluto is in the sixth house. So there is an element of like quick romantic relationships or just fun interactions with people that are teaching you something deeper about yourself, and it may come in a way that is, can be harsh or difficult or just, not the easiest to deal with, but it's teaching you something. I do just want to make a quick note about Saturn in Aquarius in the 11th as well. So, Saturn is in Aquarius right now, so this is kind of the period of your Saturn return. Right now Saturn is a little bit, I'm going to check. Saturn right now is at 7 degrees of Aquarius. Your Saturn is at 25 degrees of Aquarius, but, it's kind of like your Saturn return kind of period. And I think this kind of Saturn return has a lot to do with the social relationships and kind of your part in the collective. So I think with Saturn and Aquarius in the 11th, during your Saturn return, you can find out like more of like what you are in society and how you fit into society or how you don't fit into society. It's about becoming more of yourself while also being part of something greater in the collective. I think that's so much of what like Saturn and Aquarius in the 11th represents when it comes to the Saturn return. It's about finding your own place in society and kind of seeing like your own uniqueness and how that uniqueness fits into the greater collective. And for me, I have the same position, during my Saturn return. It's like I became much more aware of just this, like my mind was open more to like what's actually going on in the world and like how I fit into that or how I don't fit into that. It's like I just became more interested in like society and like the collective consciousness. So that was a lot to take in, I'm sure. It's a lot of information here. I do find it a very interesting chart. There is quite a lot going on, and I hope that made sense and that you got something out of it. I really appreciate being able to try this officially, so to speak. And I hope I didn't miss out anything that was like super important or like a key point, because like there's so many things to these charts that we can't read like every single element in as much depth as one would like. So I hope that made sense and I hope you got something out of it. So thanks very much.